Well, my judge sentenced a murderer to a maximum of 17 years. He also noted that the rapist of a 10-year-old child could receive a maximum sentence of 11 years. He also noted that a terrorist would receive a maximum of 24 years. So I received a sentence that a child raping terrorist would receive for 3 small marijuana transactions. That's ridiculous.
I completely agree. Can you explain a little bit about minimum sentencing and stacking?
Absolutely. So mandatory minimums are laws that require the judge to impose a minimum number of years regardless of the individual circumstances. For instance, in my situation, I got a mandatory 25-year enhancement under these mandatory minimums just because I owned a legal firearm in a gun safe in my house when I was arrested. Marijuana's illegality required my judge to impose 25 extra years for exercising my Second Amendment right. Judges have no discretion when it comes to mandatory sentencing, and that's why we need to reform it. Mandatory minimums put the discretion in the hands of the prosecutor rather than the judge, who is more trained in the exercise of discretion.
On a federal and state level, what do you think our country should do to fix some of these issues?
I think we need to first give judges discretion to judge. Prosecutors often are sometimes younger than the defendant, and they don't have that experience in exercising judgment like judges do. So we definitely need to change mandatory sentences, and we need to reform our cannabis laws. I think those are the most important issues right now.
What are some important factors that should be considered regarding cannabis legislation in the state and federal level?
So currently, we have a 2-tiered system of justice. Our federal system allows state operators across the country to profit off cannabis, despite violating federal law. Currently, the federal system still has around 3,000 people who are serving 20, 30, 40 years for non-violent, low-level cannabis offenses. And both sides are violating federal law. Federal law does not recognize state law. And so this is injustice. And so the federal system definitely needs to put the discretion in the states and let the states decide how to implement their own cannabis laws if they choose to do so.
For the state legislators here with a strong desire to further sentencing reforms, what do you say the biggest obstacle in that battle would be?
I would say right now, the crime rate has risen, especially around murders. And so it makes it really difficult to pass sentencing reform because of that. And what advocates are asking for, we're not asking for lower sentences for murderers and violent offenders. We're asking for lower sentences for non-violent drug offenses. And I think that's a big obstacle right now because of that crime rate that keeps rising.
Is there anything else you want to add?
Yeah, I would just say for the state legislators out there to really think about cannabis reform. State after state is continuing to legalize, and even in those states that don't want cannabis laws in their state, we need to do something on the criminal justice side. We can't have entrepreneurs in one state and then in another state they're considered criminal.
Thank you so much, Brother.
Yeah.
Please welcome to the stage our Chief Executive Officer, Lisa E. Nelson.
What a story. Congratulations, welcome. You are making a difference. And we watched at ALEC firsthand on all of the efforts that you guys did with working with the administration on the First Step Act. And just really remarkable, all the things you've been able to do. Congratulations. Our next speaker is another remarkable individual, a good friend of ALEC, and is joining us from America First Policy Institute, whose work on criminal justice reform we have been admiring for years as well, and was also involved in the First Step Act. America First Policy Institute is led by the amazing Brooke Rollins, who you probably remember as the domestic policy advisor in the Trump administration, and they are blazing a trail for free market, America-minded policies. Please welcome Jerron Smith.
first of all, thank you, ALEC, for the warm invitation to come out here to speak to you all about criminal justice reform and the First Step Back. And I want to give a special thanks to Lisa Nelson for her tireless work and efforts. Without the partnership we had with ALEC and Weldon Angelos, it would have been hard to really move the needle. So it was certainly a team effort with getting criminal justice reform done. And ALEC has provided us with a rich forum of reason and open, nonpartisan discussions. And I'm very thankful for rare moments where we can put differences aside and have a debate and discussion about the issues that matter. Today I'm going to talk a little bit about the First Step Back, which was President Trump's landmark 2018 bill that marked the first major reform in criminal justice in almost 2 decades. To be honest with you, it's not something that President Trump ran on, just because traditionally Republicans have taken tough on crime kind of vernacular on criminal justice issues. And so when I joined the administration, of course, I'm not a lawyer by background, and I worked on the Hill for over 10 years. But I went, before working on the Hill for 10 years, I served as a financial advisor in Cleveland, Ohio. And at my local church, I served as a mentor coordinator for a job partnership program. What I didn't realize is that most of the individuals that were looking for opportunities and jobs were individuals who were former offenders and coming home from prison. And I ended up becoming, I was like 23 years old, I ended up becoming a mentor to people who served 30 years, 50, 60 years old, coming back out, in the 21st century and not really knowing how to navigate the job market. And so that was at that point in time, and then all the personal experiences where I got arrested, but I had the ability to afford legal counsel, then I realized that our criminal justice system was really broken. And so when I got the opportunity, right when I left the Hill, to work with an organization called Generation Opportunity, and I got the opportunity to kind of work on criminal justice reform, I kind of jumped right into it. And that was right around the time where I met Weldon. And so this is before the Trump administration and all other things. Weldon's case was probably the first case I really worked on. And so seeing him come home and get justice was really important. But at that time, we were really advocating for the Sentencing Reform and Corrections Act, which was the legislation that was put forward by Durbin and Senator Grassley, but didn't get a chance to really get voted on during the Obama administration. So when we had the opportunity to work on this in the Trump administration, there was a lot of skepticism around doing that type of reform. And so what we did, with partnership with a guy named Brett Tolman and other individuals, we thought it was best to kind of break the legislation down to a thing that everyone had in common. We know that 90% of the individuals that go to prison are coming home. We also know that America, is 5%, of the world's population, but has like 23% of the prisoners in the world. And so that's crazy. And so instead of just letting the status quo be, we need to do something to help not only reform our prisons, but create a safer environment through recidivism reduction. Because we thought that if we can curb recidivism rates and people who we knew were going to come home, those 90% that we knew were going to come home, we could curb that, by just a little bit, or 10%, is less individuals being victimized and less people going back to prison. America's recidivism rates are extremely high. I think on average they're like 50%, but you go to some states it's like 70%. The federal system was at like 35%, so it was lower than a lot of our local prison systems, but there still was some work to do. And so the focus really was on recidivism reduction reform. And so we focused on prison reform, reforming our prisons in a way that once a person entered the prison system, he wouldn't come out the same, and create incentives around the prison system that would get people to participate in the recidivism reduction program based off of their individual criminality. And that was the focus initially around criminal justice reform. And we were able to overwhelmingly get the First Step Act passed out the House as a result of that focus. But once we passed the legislation out the House, we ran up against Senator Durbin and Senator Grassley that really wanted to focus on sentencing reform and add some pieces to the legislation that would deal with mandatory minimums, which we thought was extremely important. So at this point in time, once we had passed the legislation out the House with the leadership of Hakeem Jeffries and Doug Collins, we really needed the president's support in getting conservatives in the Senate to support this legislation. And I think this is really key because, right now, as Weldon mentioned, with the rise in violent crime, we have to be very sensitive to how we do criminal justice reform. And I'm going to be honest with you, there's a right and a wrong way to do criminal justice reform. And we're seeing that play out, especially with the pandemic. Some localities spent time using a blanket approach towards letting people out and giving them second chances. And that's put some localities in a position where violent crime has increased. That's not what we're talking about, and that's certainly not the policy of America First Policy Institute. Our focus is on primarily on reducing crime. And we think that reducing crime, we can do it in a smart way by focusing on those non-violent individuals so that we can focus our real resources on the violent offender, those people who seek to do harm in society. And so I wanted to kind of talk about that specifically because in order for us to continue to do the great work, similar to the First Step Act, we have to focus on a measured approach that allows for second chances for non-violent offenders, and at the same time, putting our resources towards those violent offenders. And at America First Policy Institute, that's going to be a huge focus of our organization because we think that the work of the First Step Act is really just a drop in the bucket. And I mean that only because our federal prison system is only like 180,000 individuals. There's millions of individuals in the state prisons, millions of individuals in the state prisons. And so our focus over the next couple of years is going to be working with state leaders like yourself, taking that measured approach towards criminal justice reform. From our work on the First Step Act, remember I told you earlier that recidivism rates were at 34%. After the First Step Back, recidivism rates are at 11%. That's a huge change. Huge change. So I want you all to be very careful when you hear people talk about the First Step Back and the rise of violent crime. The facts tell a whole different story. And the fact is that it didn't take a blanket approach towards criminal justice reform. Very measured approach. And so what I would like to do is continue to help you all think about how we can take a measured approach towards criminal justice reform that's going to focus on fairness, focus on giving people second chances, focus on non-violent offenders, but most importantly, keep communities safe. Because that's the most important thing that we can do as leaders in America. So I'll end here because there's a lot of different things I can talk about. But many states are currently doing reforms. We've seen reforms in Texas, Kentucky, and Ohio, taking that measured approach like the First Step Back, focusing on rehabilitation, sentencing reform, and recidivism reduction. But I'm proud that we're all together going to work to make people more aware on what's the right way to do reform versus the wrong way. And I can't wait to see what the future holds, especially with leadership like individuals like Lisa Nelson and Weldon Angelos, individuals like Right on Crime, Brooke Rollins. This is an issue that really conservatives can lean in on, because if we don't take this bull by the horns and lead the way, I worry about criminal justice reform. So it's on us to take that leadership. We're here to help. We're here to kind of partner with ALEC, and God knows that we're doing the work of the people, because look at these stories. Look at Weldon. Look at Allison Marie Johnson. Look at Duke Tanner. I mean, these are individuals that came out of the prisons and are making a positive change, not only to their families, but to their communities. And that's really what it's all about, helping our country, create these ecosystems of opportunity for everyone. I'm very thankful for ALEC inviting me up today, and I look forward to what we have ahead. Thanks so much.
Welcome back to the stage, Lisa Nelson.
Well, thank you, Jerron. That was amazing, and our partnership really is truly making a difference. You know, it occurred to me as we were sitting here that people might think this is a new issue. You know, in the wake of some of these stories that have come out. And we just double checked. ALEC has been working on criminal justice reform issues for over 20 years. And we have over 70 model policies on our website that have been compiled over those 20 years that are now getting some attention and making that difference. I want to just quickly give a shout out and have our public sector chair, Kim Moser from Kentucky, stand up, Craig DeRoche from Right on Crime stand up, and Nina Marchese, our task force director, stand up. And just give them a round of applause for all the work that they've done. We're just grateful that so many leaders around the country kind of took this issue on, and sometimes it takes something to kind of light a fire. Look what we're seeing in America on education right now. I said on a radio program yesterday, someone poked the mama bear and she's not happy. You know, so when mama doesn't like what's being taught in their kids' school, they're going to get angry. So I think through criminal justice reform that fire has been lit, and we're making a huge difference. So we appreciate it. Now is one of my favorite parts of the day and of the week. ALEC is privileged to announce the winner of the 3rd annual Gregor G. Peterson Prize for Venture Philanthropy. ALEC is blessed to be partnered with the Gregor G. Peterson Foundation, which is an organization founded in honor of an individual who left his children and grandchildren a legacy of care and compassion. Gregor Peterson, who also grew up very close to where I grew up in Northern California, and the family are Californians. He was a great venture capitalist who saw so much need for philanthropic enterprise in the world. He began investing in people and causes that would improve our country. And if you haven't noticed, we have a little bit of a criminal justice reform theme going, so we're going to stick with that. 2 years ago, Darcy Olson and Generation Justice were recognized as the first ever recipients of this prize. Last year, the Center for American Liberty, with their founder, Harmeet Dillon, and Executive Director Mark Trammell, received the distinction. And these organizations, wasn't unnoticed by me, were both started by women, which is so exciting. Fostering reform across the country have gone on to accomplish truly amazing things. I know you're seeing Harmeet Dillon all over the television right now, protecting our free speech and doing a terrific job. Joining us now on stage to reveal this year's winners are John Jackson and Nicole Hoffland.
Thank you, Lisa, for those very kind remarks. I agree, Jerron. America could use more leaders like Lisa Nelson. Wisdom born of experience, patriotism, policy expertise. What she really understands as it relates to this prize is that innovative private philanthropy can drive and lead to public policies that benefit a lot of people in a positive way. So we thank you, and we thank all the ALEC members for hosting this presentation of the 3rd annual Gregor G. Peterson Prize in Venture Philanthropy. Gregor Peterson, as Lisa noted, was a native of San Francisco, Stanford alum, early pioneer in venture capital, and co-founded one of the first venture firms on the West Coast in 1962. But importantly, he was also, like you, a patriot. He believed what's written along the front of this sign here that government should be limited in our lives, that we should have free markets, and relevant to this mission of this organization, that there's a sanctity in states' rights. But he was also a committed philanthropist, as you noted, Lisa. Gregor Peterson passed away in 2001, but his two sons, Eric and Chris, and their families, who are sitting right here, in honor of their father, created the Gregor G. Peterson Prize in Venture Philanthropy. This $250,000 prize is awarded annually to a innovative, groundbreaking new nonprofit who share the business principles of their father, which include teamwork, innovation, and entrepreneurship. As the Peterson's charitable advisors, we thank ALEC and all of you individually for your nominations for this year's prize. And I'll just throw in a little pitch that the prize will be awarded again next year. And you can, if you know of innovative new nonprofits in your districts, please submit them. You can do that at petersonventureprize.com. That is petersonventureprize.com. The deadline to nominate your nonprofit is July 1st, 2022.
Thank you, John. And now what you have been waiting for, the announcement of this year's prize winner. The 2021 Gregor G. Peterson Prize in Venture Philanthropy goes to an organization called Recidivism, an innovative technology nonprofit that uses public-private partnerships and cutting-edge analytics to reduce prison populations safely and efficiently. Recidivism builds modern data tools to help corrections agencies get a real-time picture of what's driving prison admissions, length of stay, recidivism, and other key metrics. North Dakota, Idaho, Missouri, Pennsylvania, Maine, and Michigan have been early adopters of their platform. And Recidivism now is onboarding a new cohort of states, saving them millions of dollars, but more importantly, rehabilitating lives. As the Recidivism team makes their way up here, as well as the Petersons, please enjoy this short video.
We created the Peterson Prize so that we could honor my grandfather's legacy. Gregor G. Peterson was a venture philanthropist, and we wanted a way to give back in his honor. And I think he would be really proud to see us finding philanthropy and causes that are having a hard time getting off the ground and being able to help them through those really early years as they start up.
You know, we look for a very bold idea. We look for something that's going to be world-changing to lots of lives. We look for an idea that can be replicated from a local region across the country.
The Peterson family looks for passion and dedication and courage. You know, it takes a lot to get a venture like this off the ground and to make sure that you have the right people and the right stuff to make it work and to make it scalable and to make it something that's going to have a great impact.
And now, let's find out more about the winner of the 2021 Gregor G. Peterson Prize in Venture Philanthropy, Recidivism, led by Clementine Jacoby.
The United States criminal justice system and its problems are complicated, but one problem that's imminently fixable is the data crisis. 50 states, 18,000 police departments, 16,000 courts, and 7,000 prisons and jails. Each collects its own data, resulting in thousands of different databases, and none of them talk to each other. We can't even answer basic questions like, how many people are in jail? That has real consequences for the 7 million people who are incarcerated or on supervision. To reform a system this complex, we need to empower thousands of people running the criminal justice system with actionable data to sustainably reduce our prison population. At Recidivism, we've created a platform that stitches together this disconnected data, and that turned out to be a big deal when COVID-19 hit.
with the 3rd annual Gregor G. Peterson Prize in Venture Philanthropy. Please join us in congratulating Recidivism's co-founder and executive director, Clementine Jacoby.
Hi everybody. First of all, thank you so much to the Peterson family. It's been really incredible to get to know them through this process, and we're really honored to be getting this award. And I'm also really excited about the opportunity it gives me to talk to this group right here. There's a little bit of an echo. Is that supposed to be true?
We can't hear it.
Okay, you guys don't hear an echo. Great, fabulous. Okay, so like I said in the video, most of our work is actually with departments of corrections, the people who run prisons and probation and parole. But there's another prong of our work that's for the people in this room, the advocates and the legislators, the policymakers who are working to pass criminal justice reform. And so I want to tell you a little bit about that today, but first I figured I'd tell you where Recidivism came from. So you've already heard a bunch of incredible stories about criminal justice, which is very exciting. I didn't know that there would be such a lineup of criminal justice rock stars. And this is not a criminal justice prize, so you just got lucky that the theme worked out. So I grew up with an uncle who went into the prison system very young. Much like Weldon, he got a very long sentence for a nonviolent crime when he was 19 years old. And so as a kid, I was always interested in the criminal justice system and sort of knew from a young age that it could be a bit irrational and cruel. But I ended up studying computer science at Stanford, which is one of the Peterson connections, and becoming a product manager at Google. And it was actually some of the people in this room and your peers who, after I was at Google, convinced me that data and technology had a role to play in criminal justice reform. Specifically, the thing that they taught me is that coming from the private sector, it was shocking to learn that the people who are tasked with running our criminal justice system and the people tasked with passing these policies did not have even basic data on what the impact might look like. So Recidivism is a team of software engineers. We're a nonprofit, and we build modern technology tools for the people running the criminal justice system. And I laugh because I think this is something that should have been done a really long time ago. All of you probably know this, but when you partner with your corrections departments, you may learn that it's really hard for them to know which of the programs that they're investing in are actually reducing recidivism. It's really hard for them to know, for example, how many people in their system are actually past their release date and shouldn't be there at all. So there's some really basic technological errors that are sort of holding us back from what could otherwise be a kind of incredible reform movement. So Recidivism partners with state governments. We're now working in 7 states, but 6 looks better on the slide. So you can see some of them here. And these states are now using this data platform to see which of the things they're investing in are working, to identify what's driving prison admissions in their state, and to take action all the way through to the staff level on those things. Now, this is the part that's more relevant to you. So it turns out that we've been spending the last 2 to 3 years building this data platform that is specific to criminal justice, which is a labor of love and a very difficult thing to do. And it turns out that this platform is also really useful for modeling the impact of proposed legislation. And we learned that only about a year and a half ago when we poked our head up out of the sand and started talking to people like Right on Crime and AFP and R Street, who said, you know, what we would really like to be able to do is much more quickly and accurately, as we're crafting our legislative agendas, understand what the potential impact would be, not just on prison populations, but also on recidivism and fiscal savings, etc. And so we tried it out. And we tried it out with some of the partners that you see on this slide and some of the partners that are here today. So what Recidivism offers now is a free policy impact modeling service to anyone that is advancing criminal justice reform. So as you're crafting your agenda for the upcoming session, we can come in and say, if you are looking to eliminate mandatory minimums in Virginia, here's what the expected impact of that would be. Now, this is a little washed out on the slide, but hopefully you can see it. What we end up producing is something that we worked for many months with many legislators on, which is a one-page memo, because it turns out that nobody likes to read more than one page of data. And so the product is specifically what you see here, which is a single page. The back side of the page is methodology. Nobody reads that. A single page that sort of shows you the impact metrics that you care about and that can help you build coalitions. Last session, we worked with about 20 states on this policy impact modeling. Every state is facing completely different challenges. Here you can just see one example from Idaho, which is working on probation caps, which are set to impact about 6,000 people, which is huge for a small state like Idaho, and on dosage probation, which would impact 12,000 people. Last year, the bills that we helped support are estimated to reduce the prison population by about 6,000 people and return about 100,000 life years, as well as save states almost $800 million. So we're really excited about these numbers. I encourage you, if this is helpful to you, if you're working on criminal justice legislation, if you're on the criminal justice task force, you can head to our website, you can check out a lot of the memos there. If that seems helpful to you, there's a really easy way to request a memo. Our team of engineers will reach out within 48 hours and let you know whether or not it's feasible and how long it will take. And if that's confusing, feel free to get in touch with me here. Again, thank you so much to the Peterson family for your really inspiring commitment to new ventures. I think it's hard to take these kinds of risks on ideas that could be incredibly big but are still incredibly early. And so I've loved getting to know you all, and we're really honored to get this award.
Welcome back to the stage. Who we have?
Wow. Thank you again to the Peterson family. We're so proud to partner with you. Your example, we're grateful for what you do as a family, and congratulations to Recidivism. What a great opportunity that is. We're going to look at it in Utah. I want you to know that. So thank you again. Very helpful. We've had a great program today. We have more to come. Don't forget our task force meetings and our fantastic supply chain workshop. And this afternoon for lunch, we have Governor Christie. No, you won't want to miss that. So come back for lunch. Again, have a great morning. Thank you.